Welcome to the ISB show. I'm your host Sahil here with Rahi. Another exciting episode about a European national team. Rahi, I've been telling you I want to do this episode about this particular team, right? Do you know what team we're going to talk about today?
I think it's my favorite team.
Yes.
I have a love affair with this team. I've loved them actually, since 1998. I'm not going to lie, but really since that 2004 Euros when I first saw my favorite player of all time, the magician himself, Mr. Luka Modric.
And of course, we are talking about hrvatska, Croatia. I thought it was after the Goran Vlahovic celebration after he scored against Germany. I thought that's when you started liking him.
That is 98. That's when I did. But then there was a bit of they were interesting in between. The Davor Suker was there for a while. They had some weird sort of ups and downs in that period. They did well, but then really I think what took off for me was when Slaven Bilic was the manager and they brought Modric into the fold and that team. And then it was just years and years of almost just losing knockout game after knockout game until finally 2018 where they lit the World Cup on fire.
Yeah, it's been a long run back from the Robert Yarny, Davor Suker days, Prosinecki, Asanovic, that whole team. And then, of course, Lada choose to wear those lovely, colorful goalie jerseys. But now we are where we are today, and it's been a long roller coaster, and obviously the history and the modern history of Croatia. And everyone knows Croatia now because of all the
success, because of how good they've been.
Yes. But what we want to talk about today is a little bit of a different note because what's happened recently in this Nations League campaign that just finished, I don't know if success is the way I describe it, Rahi.
Ultimately a success to get through, I would say. Yes, not successful at many times. Some poor results, some poor play, some bad mistakes. Nothing we haven't seen from Croatia in the past. But ultimately, they do get out. They do make it in to the next round. And let's be honest, it was a tough group. This is a very good Portugal team, right? This is a team that's firing on all cylinders, and a team that historically Croatia does not play well against. I don't even know, had they even tied Portugal before? I'm not sure. They may have lost every time. So to get the draw against Portugal, to get in, that's a good result. It's not ultimately a good campaign, I would say, for Croatia. But now it starts again, right? Now it's you have every opportunity.
Yeah, let's talk briefly about the campaign because there were obviously Poland, Scotland, Croatia, and Portugal, right? And there was some bizarre games against Poland. The 3-3 game was one of the most crazy matches.
It was wild. Yeah. And that's the thing with this iteration of Croatia. We've seen it coming. They've always conceded goals, but the challenge right now is they're conceding way too many goals, right? Against a team like Poland, for example, it should be comfortable. You score as many times as you do. It should be a comfortable victory, and yet they concede so many soft goals. And it's frustrating because you have, arguably one of the best defenders in the world. I mean, yes, he's an attacking defender, Josko Vardiol. Of course, he's going to be the best player for Croatia. He's an incredible, incredible talent. And you have some other good players next to him, right? You have players like Ćaleta-Car who should be good, right? You have Suka. These are players who are playing at big clubs, and yet they seem to make mistakes when playing for Croatia. And if you remember before the Euros, I was a bit excited about how they were getting younger in the back, right?
Yeah.
For how long had we seen Lovren and Vida and these old guys, right? And we thought that maybe going younger was better. Unfortunately, since the transition, the defense has been leaking goals, and that's the problem.
And you saw this starting in the Euros, right? Because of the Albania match, right? Conceding a late goal against Albania. The Spain match, forget about that one. But like right off the bat, you're conceding so many soft goals. Granted, Spain is the eventual champions, but you saw in every single match, right? This is the trend that was happening. And you go back to even before that, and you like you said, we thought the problem was that it was the older guys that were, kind of, it was their time to retire, but it's not changed.
No, it hasn't. And it just seems like as you go down the list, Borna Sosa, all these players, they're talented players, but haven't seemed to reach the heights that you think they can for Croatia. And whereas some of the players in the past, I think the Chorlukas of the world, of course, they always raised their game for Croatia, right? They looked better for the national team at times than they did for their club teams. And maybe it'll just take time. They're still young. Most of these players are still quite young. So let's see. And the midfield is still incredible, right? Kovacic, now a key part of Manchester City. He's injured now, of course, but an incredible player. And Luka Modric, man, the guy, he's never going to retire. I mean, he looks
Incredible.
insane.
It's incredible. He could be here for the World Cup as well. So it was interesting because, you know, then you had the Portugal matches, and the Scotland one was the really strange dynamic, I felt, because I felt in the first match they were fairly comfortable for most of it. And then I thought Guardiola specifically had a very poor match in Hampden Park, right? That the young teenager was playing against him, and you saw in general, I thought, granted, there was the red card and all that, right? So, but I thought that was the match where you kind of thought, okay, are they going to get it done? And then I thought, look, you know, granted, it was Portugal played a lot of their second team players and stuff in that match, but you know, Guardiola got the goal when it needed to get they get the goal, and as Croatia does, they make it through now to the quarterfinals for the Nations League.
Yeah, but in that game, Rafa Leao was playing, right? I mean, it wasn't the second team. Some of these players you're talking about for Portugal, it's hard to differentiate between their second team and their first team. The thing with Croatia, I would say, is you never quite know, because if you remember right before that 2018 World Cup, that run, they were very low, right? In terms of, it was a huge low point. They fired the manager. I believe they had tied or lost to Finland. I can't remember exactly the result, but they were really going into that playoff in a spot of bother. And then, of course, they go out and get Zlatko Dalic, who at the time, for most of us around the world, was really an unknown entity. Yeah. And then he ends up becoming, you know, arguably the best national team manager in the world, you might say.
Yeah. Now, at the one thing to note, at the time of this video being released, there's some strange things in the press about Dalic going to Qatar. Why he would want to go to that national team. We've talked about it in our Asian videos. Given the state of that national team, why he would go, I have no clue, Rahi. But that's what's floating around the rumor mill in the Croatian social media and news outlets.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what the root of the story is, if it's true or not. We will find out. He does have ties to the Middle East, right? He's coached in the Saudi Pro League. He's had some success there, coaching with some big clubs. So he does have some love for the region, I think. And look, and the other thing I will say is he has accomplished so much with Croatia that I think whenever he does leave and chooses to leave, I think it's his right, and he's entitled to do so, right? Because I think he's just, I mean, you can't match a manager for the success he's had with Croatia. Incredible. World Cup final and then a third place. It's I mean, it's just, I don't even know what to say. He's absolutely one of the greatest national team managers probably in history.
Yeah, 100%. I think Zlatko Dalic has been incredible. So what he mentioned about this France matchup is he said, I'm optimistic, right? As you know, he tends to be in general, which is he has a very nice demeanor in that capacity. Some previous Croatian managers didn't have that demeanor, but I don't know. It's an interesting matchup. The teams have know each other very well. They've played it quite a few times in this. You know, France obviously got the better of them a few times, but Croatia has also had their successes as well. So it's an interesting tie for the next matchup, I think, in the Nations League.
Yeah, it's the team that their bogey team in a lot of ways. If you think about Portugal, Croatia has trouble with Portugal. Croatia always has trouble with France as well. If you think about in big moments, right? 98, France, right? Of course, in 2018 World Cup final, it's France again. A lot of big losses, painful losses at the hands of the French. Look, I mean, at some point they do have to beat France, and France does look as weak as ever, maybe in some ways, because Mbappe is in a low moment. So there's a little bit of sort of uncertainty within the team, but it's France. Incredibly talented. It's a matchup nightmare for the Croatians, right? The athleticism all over the field for the French. But where the Croatians have the advantage, as they do against nearly every team in the world, is in the midfield. And if the midfield dominates the game, and if they don't concede soft goals, that's a big if. And you know, if maybe if Vlahovic has an incredible game, then they can get through.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is going to be, can the defense hold up? Can they perform like we know that they can perform, right? There was, of course, look, there was the last time that Croatia played France, right, in the Nations League, they did win, right? So like there's that history to kind of, you know, come from behind. So I think it's going to be a very interesting tie. We'll see how that does. I just want to end finish here with just kind of end with sort of overarching. We'll talk more about Croatia. We're going to have more videos out there about Croatia, but just overall, where do you think this team is? Because it's a little bit of a rebuild, some new generation. Like, if you have to say overall, like how good is this version of Croatia?
They're in a transition period. It's an in-between moment for Croatia. But the minute you count them out, right? Remember the last World Cup, the minute you count them out, that's when they come back strong. I would say this, that yes, it's a interim period. There's a transition going on between young and old. And maybe some of the younger players need to get better and need to prove it even more on the world stage. And eventually, yes, some of the older players will get phased out. Luka Modric cannot play till he's 100. So at some point, he will retire. But the thing to remember is we saw the same thing after 98, right? We saw a lull for a little bit, some in between, and then they came back with this incredible generation. So that generation, the next big generation, is not far behind. So with Croatia, you know they're always producing talent, always producing incredibly technically gifted midfielders. I don't really have fear for the long-term sort of health of this Croatian team. In this moment, yeah, maybe not the best moment, but never count Croatia out.
Yes, I think if anyone wants to learn something, that's 100% the case. So for those of you enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel. Croatian fans, we'd love to hear your thoughts of where you think your national team is given this particular juncture. Please don't be too harsh on Lovro Majer. That seems to be everyone seems to want it. Like, poor guy gets like, all kinds of flack. So please be nice to him. But for out there, for those enjoying the videos, Rahi, anything you want to add? You want to sing your song, or no? We just end. Maybe that's a song for another day.
Song for another day.
Yeah. You know what song he's referring to, right? What's give a little like a little bit.
Zovi, samozovi, sviće, sokolovi, za te živo dati. Come on, let's go, Croatia.